on this episode of Southern Remedy.
The world around you disappears. The only focus you have is on the addiction. It consumes your entire life.
More people are dying from prescription drug use. That's where the problem is. The problem is an overdose of prescription drug use. Part of the reason is the drugs that are available are more dangerous.
Welcome to another edition of Southern Remedy. I'm your host, Dr. Rick DeShazo. On this episode, we're investigating the problem of drug abuse and addiction in Mississippi. You're going to meet real people, your friends and neighbors, who are battling this problem. Since 1991, the death rate from overdoses of prescription drugs in the United States has tripled. There are more deaths from prescription drugs, specifically opioids, than from the illegal street drugs, cocaine and heroin combined. Opioids are a class of drugs made from opium, which is derived from poppy seed pods. Heroin is an illegal opioid. Some legal opioids include codeine, methadone, morphine, oxycodone, and hydrocodone. Common brand names of legal opioids include Vicodin, Lorcet, Loratab, OxyContin, Demerol, and Percocet. Let's learn more about addiction.
I was a pharmacy student at Ole Miss, and I kept having problems falling asleep, and I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. So they gave me Ritalin. They put me on Ritalin, which the diagnosis was correct. I remember the first time I took Ritalin, I felt something change when I took it. I felt an overpowering sense in my psyche that basically said, wow, I can look back and say that even from the first dose, something changed. Over the years of taking it, it went from a normal drug to an obsession. It became an addiction.
Prescription drugs, there's two types of people that get addicted. The first one is the one we've known about for years, the person who just wants to get high. And then there are what we call your new types of addicts and persons we haven't seen before. These are people who I say accidentally got addicted, and I say that because they first presented in a physician's office because they were suffering from some sort of illness or pain. Often when you have a lot of pain, you have anxiety. You worry about it, you have difficulty sleeping. So it's not unusual for an individual to leave a doctor's office with a pain medicine, an anti-anxiety medicine, and a sleep medication. And so they start taking these pills. It came from a physician, so it must be safe.
When I was about 26 years old, I had a back injury, and they put me on Vicodin. And literally, from the first prescription, it was like a switch flipped in my head. This warm blanket wrapped around me, and this haze went up between me and the world, and it didn't matter what you thought anymore. And everybody kind of backed away, and I felt okay, totally 100% in my skin for the first time, and I didn't care what you thought. And it was safe and it was comfortable, and that was just in the beginning.
Dr. Scott Coffey of the University of Mississippi Medical Center's Department of Psychiatry has seen an increase in prescription drug addiction treatment since 2004 and explains how these substances can lead to addiction.
Substances are very effective. They change our mood, they change how we feel. So that is very appealing. So we use socially for a while. We find out that, when I feel bad, if I have this substance, I don't feel so bad anymore. So that sets up a process called negative reinforcement, where this distress is being removed. It is very rewarding, so that leads to greater substance use. And over time, then our body starts to expect this. We have upregulation of dopamine receptors, where now our brain is sort of crying for this substance, and you have the cycle of addiction.
Persons start taking this, they realize it does make them feel better. Medication does what it's supposed to do. It makes them feel better. So the next time they're not feeling as good, the answer can easily become taking a pill. And so I say they become accidentally addicted because they didn't go out to get high. They're not trying to party. They started out doing something very innocent, and it just progressed to where they were taking more than was prescribed. And then they may run out of pills, so they've got to go back to the doctor to ask for more.
One doctor. Then it was 2 doctors. Then it was 6 doctors. You know, still didn't seem odd to me that when you're juggling 6 doctors and 7 or 8 pharmacies, I mean, drug seeking became my job. You know, it was an absolute job to keep up with which doctor had told which lie to get which drug, and not to go to the pharmacy that I had used. It absolutely became a juggling act, and I still was able to tell myself, this is okay because doctors are giving me these meds. This is not drug addiction.
After a person's been taking these pills for a while, it's not unusual that they're going to a very responsible physician who says, I can't prescribe this for you any longer, or they're not believing the stories about them being lost or stolen and that sort of thing. And so they start to deny them prescriptions, where the person really then starts to drug seek. So they're looking for it in any place they can get it. I mean, that can include the internet, it can include stealing from your neighbor's medicine cabinet, it can include stealing from your parents or other relatives.
I began stealing from friends, coming to your house, going through your, first place I was going was your medicine cabinet. I figured out you could order drugs on the internet, prescription medications from the internet, and I did. And it was coming from other countries without a prescription. And, you know, my father, after I got clean, he said, you could have been taking anthrax for all you knew. If it was in a pill form and I thought it was going to get me high, that's all that mattered. In the end, there was nothing fun about it. There was nothing safe feeling about it. It was the loneliest, scariest place you can imagine, because it was that constant fear of not having enough and running out and going into detox, and it was just a dark, lonely place in the end.
Eventually, this is going to cause some sort of crisis. It's going to cause some sort of crisis either in their home or at work or in their social functioning, but something is going to happen. And it's been my experience that's when people will seek treatment.
Addiction spirals into crisis, which can land you in front of this man, Executive Director of the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, Marshall Fisher, who has over 20 years' experience in the war on drugs.
We want to send the message, because what we've learned over time is that people that are addicted to prescription drugs, there's only about 3 ways that ends. They get busted, which creates an intervention. Law enforcement's tools are limited. We arrest somebody, we seize the evidence, we write up a report, and we refer it to the district attorney for prosecution.
I was in a jail cell wearing an orange uniform. And I'm sitting there on that jail cell, and I got out the next morning, but I remember sitting there going, there's something wrong with me. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be this person that I am now. I have become something that I'm not supposed to be. This is wrong. I'm not supposed to live like this. I'm not supposed to get in trouble, and I'm not supposed to do these things. Up till then, I was in complete denial. It's amazing that denial can be that powerful, but I'm telling you, denial is very powerful in addiction. I did not realize how far down I was until I sat there and looked at myself in that orange jumpsuit and said, I cannot believe I have come down this far. My life has just been destroyed. And at that point, I knew I have a problem. It's time for me to do something about it.
A lot of these cases get deferred, they get probation, and they get treatment, which I am certainly all for. I think treatment's the way to go for addicts. The other way, besides the law enforcement intervention, is maybe they're fortunate enough to have a family who has the wherewithal to put them in a good program, and they're willing to go in a program to get rehabilitated.
I had a roommate at the time who I had a really bad night and had a blackout. and apparently my behavior was off the charts crazy that night, and she called my brother and told him, either y'all are gonna do something or she is gonna die. He pretty much decided to pull an intervention of his own, and he just kind of put it in my face and said, this stops today, because I'm just not gonna watch you die anymore.
So family members, friends shouldn't hold back when they see something happening. They should intervene, because the negative consequences is what's going to cause a behavior change.
And the last way is with a toe tag. Addicts have a saying, hell, jail, or rehab.
Death, jail, or rehab. Emergency room admissions in the United States for prescription drug overdose or misuse increased 98% from 2004 to 2009. In 2012, the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics initiated more criminal investigations into prescription drugs than investigations into any of the illicit street drugs like crack or cocaine. Between 2000 and 2010, substance abuse treatment program admissions for prescription opiates grew 400% in the United States. And then there are the drugs themselves.
Research actually shows that there's no significant increase in the number of people abusing prescription drugs. There's no real increase in the number of people using it. What is happening and why so much attention is being focused on it, and why you'll hear the federal government say that there is an epidemic, is more people are dying from prescription drug use. That's where the problem is. The problem is an overdose of prescription drug use. Part of the reason is the drugs that are available are more dangerous. People were abusing drugs 20 years ago. They're still abusing drugs now, but the drugs that are available are more dangerous drugs, and they're combining them. As we mentioned earlier, they're combining a painkiller with an anti-anxiety, with a sleep aid. These are all very dangerous combinations.
Director Fisher thinks the solution to the prescription medicine epidemic will not come from law enforcement, but from the medical community.
There's nothing else we can do with this problem other than what we're doing. We have no other tools. They can fix it. They can fix it through regulation, strict monitoring of the prescription drug monitor program, encouraging physicians and other prescribers to register for the program so that when you come through their doors and you complain of pain, they can run you through the system and see, well, you haven't been to 14 other doctors.
And Dr. Coffey agrees. Part of the problem is how easy the drugs are to get. The solution, he believes, is to reduce the supply.
We need to rein in our prescription practices. We as a society need to have a much tighter limit on how many medications are prescribed, the type of medications that are prescribed, the individuals who are who will prescribe them. Oftentimes physicians are not, they may not be aware that they are creating addicted patients. We see them on our end. It started out, I was a little anxious. I had things were going bad at work. I was having some panic attacks. I was having some anxiety symptoms. They gave me a benzodiazepine, and then now I see them for an entirely different issue. They still have panic symptoms, but they also have addiction to benzodiazepines. So I think as a society, having tighter control on our prescription practices would be very helpful.
The number one strategy in controlling the supply of prescription drugs is the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. Deborah Brown is the program manager for the Mississippi State Board of Pharmacy's Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, which works with medical professionals, pharmacists, and law enforcement agents to track and monitor prescribed medications.
By law, anyone who dispenses controlled substances in or into the state of Mississippi, they're required to report that activity to the Prescription Monitoring Program. So that's where the database comes in, and we've got records going back to 2005, and we receive anywhere from 550,000 to 600,000 separate prescriptions every month into the program. hydrocodone is always the number one prescribed narcotic. It is over 172,000 prescriptions, and it translates to over 9,700,000 dosage units.
The number 2 most prescribed drug is alprazolam, which is also known as Xanax. 35 million dosage units were prescribed in 2012. Tramadol, 32 million dosage units prescribed. Oxycodone, 16.6 million dosage units. Ambien, 15.5 million dosage units were prescribed in 2012.
There's approximately 9.5 million on the average hydrocodone dosage units prescribed in this state every month. 119 million dosage units of hydrocodone were prescribed in this state last year, 2012. And that our population is just a little north of 3 million. That's enough to give everybody in the state probably 60 dosage units.
When a physician uses the prescription drug monitoring program, it alters their prescribing behavior. Where they prescribed less than they had intended to before, they looked at the individual's record on the prescription drug monitoring program, or they refused to give them to them at all, knowing that I've already seen 3 other doctors this month and gotten the same prescription. So it's an extremely useful tool.
As of August 13th, there were over 2,700 physicians signed up to use the program. And that is the largest group that actually uses the prescription monitoring program. That is the same for every other state in the U.S.
As participation in Mississippi's prescription monitoring program has gone up, small changes are being seen.
We realized that hydrocodone was holding steady, but the other 4 top drugs had actually declined. This is really the first time that I have seen that happen. And so when we went and compared July to August, what we found was that hydrocodone was actually trending down. 7,000 prescriptions down. Xanax was down by 1,000 prescriptions. Tramadol down by 1,000 prescriptions, as well as Ambien and Klonopin down. It is coming down, and I believe one of the reasons it's coming down is because not only medical licensure, but Board of Nursing, they're having their people sign up for these programs, and they're trying to be proactive about looking at every individual and then making a decision based upon that profile.
The State Board of Medical Licensure and the State Board of Nursing, as well as the State Board of Pharmacy, are working together with other state and federal agencies to rein in this epidemic of prescription drug abuse. The Food and Drug Administration has just announced tighter controls on hydrocodone. These could go into effect as early as 2014, and they could include reducing the amount of refills a patient could get without a new prescription or a doctor visit. We, the medical community, have got to do more. We've been taught that pain relief is among the most important things we do. For us, pain management is difficult. We can't measure it with a blood test or a blood pressure cuff. We have to do a better job encouraging patients to manage pain by methods other than opiates and to help them in that process. Now, as patients, we have to understand that every pain does not have to be extinguished to be healthy and functional. As Mississippians, we have to talk about addiction. We have to shine a light on the problem, get it out into the open. We have to turn a negative problem into a series of positive solutions.
Life started getting better, and I stayed sober, and I kept off the drugs and alcohol. And after a while, MARP had been screening me and helping me along the way, and they took me back before the State Board of Pharmacy. They said, "This guy's done really well. We think you should give him another chance." And they did.
I always thought there was some grand purpose for me in life. And I believe today that my grand purpose in life is to have been a drug addict, to have been through everything I've been through, because now I sponsor these women, and I go to these hospitals and these institutions, and I share my story with these other people that are sitting in treatment and who think there is no hope that they will ever get clean and that they will ever live a normal life. And the women I sponsor, I see them come in with, like, some of them have lost their kids. Some of them think they'll never go to college. I've seen them graduate with a master's degree. I've seen them get their kids back. You know, I have seen lives change in drastic ways. And if I even get to be the tiniest part of that, being a drug addict is truly the big, wonderful thing that was supposed to happen to me. And, you know, I think that's a really cool deal, that I get to be a part of these things in somebody's life.
So what I do now is I get to help other people with addiction problems. I get to show them the way out of it. Because a lot of things happen when you become an addict, you can't find a way out. Everybody on the outside can see that you've lost it, but you can't see it because you're stuck inside this addiction and you can't see what's wrong. You can't get out. We just kind of grab you by the hand and say, you know, come on, we can show you the way. We can get you your life back. A much better life than you had when you were an addict, for sure.
There are readily available resources and pathways out of prescription drug abuse and addiction. If you or someone you love is battling any type of addiction, reach out, seek help. You don't have to go it alone. There are people who have been through what you're going through, and there are professionals trained to treat addiction, and they're waiting to help you. The resources that are available on your screen here are also on our website, southernremedy.org. For Southern Remedy, I'm Dr. Rick DeShazo. Thanks for watching.